Do join me inside a Lamborghini Huracan. Now, maybe that much is obvious from the general wildness of the design inside and out, but not necessarily does any of that tell you which one it is. And Lamborghini offers more variants of its supercar than a lot of other car manufacturers. And so to recap, when the Huracan was first launched, it was slightly underwhelming. It was, despite being really exciting and having this naturally aspirated 5.2 litre V10 that revs to the heavens, it was disappointingly understeery and, safe is the wrong word, but just a bit blunt to drive. But since then, Lamborghini has set about improving things, not least of which with the Performante that came recently, which really sharpened up its responses and made us aware of what a world-class supercar there is lurking within this chassis. And so last year, Lamborghini gave us the Huracan Evo, which sharpened up the whole package as part of a midlife facelift. But really, it's when Lamborghini throws away the front drive shafts that the Huracan, and in a way I think the Gallardo before it, really come alive. And that's what this is. So this is the Huracan RWD rear-wheel drive. So it's now the entry point to the Huracan range. It costs some £34,000 less than a standard Huracan Evo, which is quite a lot, isn't it? That's significant. So it's only, I use the word only slightly advisedly, £163,000. Now, I will admit that £163,000 is still rather a lot of money, but when you compare it to, say, a Ferrari F8 Tributo at £203,000, well, it almost seems like a bargain, no? Well, no, maybe not, because there are also some things that are optional here that would be standard on other cars. So, digital radio reception will cost you £650. Carbon ceramic brakes, which are standard on McLarens and Ferraris, are £5,500. So as well as the front drive shafts, other things have been lost too. So there is now no active rear wheel steering as there is on four-wheel drive Huracans. And four-wheel drive Huracans also get torque vectoring at the back, which this doesn't have either. And gone too is some of the power, some 29 brake horsepower in fact, which means that this Huracan only makes 603 brake horsepower and 413 pounds-foot. However, if a 0 to 62 mile an hour time of 3.3 seconds is not quite enough for you, then well, I don't know, I think it's probably fine. Besides, it also means, and this is the bit that really appeals to me, it also means that 33 kilograms has come out of the Huracan's curb weight. Now, Lamborghini, like a lot of supercar makers, quotes a dry weight, which is absolutely no help to anybody. But when we last put a Performante on the scales at Autocar, it came in at under 1,600 kilos, about 1,590 kilos. So you could think that this, if it's not fully fueled but is road ready, would be somewhere 1,550-ish, which is, even though this car has no turbos, is pretty good for a car with a 5.2 litre engine. So to keep that weight fairly respectable, and I think that is fairly respectable, don't you? I think what you can really thank is the Huracan's platform, which, as you may have seen, there are build videos elsewhere on YouTube. Beers for Build has got a Huracan fitted a V8 engine to, and you will know if you see it that the central tub that I'm sitting in is carbon fibre, and then there's aluminium front and rear subframe. So it's a relatively sensible, lightweight, strong structure. Ferraris are mostly aluminium throughout. McLarens have a bit more carbon fibre in them. The Huracan is somewhere between the two, and that probably shows. But away from all the numbers and all the statistics and everything else, the thing to remember more than anything is that this is the best Lamborghini Huracan to drive. Now, partly that's still down to this engine, which is unbelievably good, extraordinarily responsive, more responsive than anything with a turbocharger, even a Ferrari F8, which has very, very little turbo lag. This, of course, with no turbos. I mean, you can't match that, can you? Even with the turbo, you won't match that. But the thing to remember is that for all the excitement and the thrills of this engine, I'm driving it on the road in the UK. So there's a limit to how far up it you can get. It revs to 8.5. Peak torque is made even at 6,200, and you can't get up there very often. So the pleasing thing to note is that actually, through the mid-range, it's still really responsive and still It's you know, although it's all about the peak power at the top, there's plenty in the middle, plenty of responsiveness, plenty of noise, and plenty of fun to be had. And I don't know if you can hear on the downshifts, all 7-speed modern twin clutch gearboxes are really smooth, but this has this little sort of pneumatic on the downshifts to go with all of the other mechanical noise. Lamborghini does engines and engine excitement better than arguably anybody else. And I think that's true, even though this only has 10 cylinders rather than the Aventador's 12. And better still, all of that goes on without any corruption of the front wheels, thanks to torque steering and shuffling power around or anything like that. So this is a more naturally honest and responsive car than a four-wheel drive Huracan. The steering just has to steer the front wheels. The power just has the power of the back wheels. And you don't get that slightly uneven steering response that you can get with active rear steer, where it tries to second guess whether you want an extra bit of incisive turn in or not, because the rear wheels just point in the same direction all the time and the steering is just steering all the time. It means that this Huracan, particularly as a road car, I haven't tried it on a circuit, but my colleagues tell me similar, it's that bit more naturally involving and engaging as a result of being a bit more simple. Now, presumably that means on a circuit it won't be as fast. I mean, certainly in acceleration terms, this 3.3 second car to 62 lags behind the 2.9 seconds of the standard Evo, but I'm not sure how much that matters. And what I like more is the fact that this feels like a proper driver's car. Now, as a driver's car, there are some limitations. Lamborghini goes for flamboyance on its interiors, absolutely no questions. You've got these big hexagons everywhere, big blocky graphics and everything, and a touchscreen which is really difficult to use because it's right down there and I have to take my arm right off the road, even if I just want to change the temperature or if I want to change the volume control of the stereo. I have to look right down here and press that button, and then I didn't press it right, and then that button. It's slightly needlessly complicated, and that's as a result of doing away with the column stalks and bringing the indicators and the windscreen wipers to the steering wheel, and now meaning there is no way for me to adjust the stereo control. And I just like heating and ventilation to have a little knob somewhere. I don't think it's too much to ask. But that is a small complaint, really, in the great scheme of things, because this is otherwise a wild, well-finished, I really love this kind of chopped carbon fibre effect stuff, interior, and I like the fact the paddles stay on the column where you left them. It's a cool, funky interior, and I like it very much. I like the view out as well, which is kind of letterboxy, but here's that Lamborghini thing. They want it to feel like the engine is behind you, pushing you along, and you're at the front of some kind of rocket or fighter jet, so you can't see the wings. Now, in a Porsche 911, in a McLaren 570 or any McLaren, and in fact in a Ferrari F8, you can see the front wings and it's much easier to place where the car is. So in the UK, it doesn't matter so much on track and it doesn't matter so much in other countries, but in the UK, it feels a little bit more unwieldy than it probably needs to. So how does it compare to the other supercars in its class, by which I am going to include any of the McLarens, the same aren't they really, the Ferrari F8 and probably a Porsche GT2 RS 911? Well, it stands on a par with them in some respects, and I wouldn't say that about a standard Huracan Evo, I don't think, but this feels to me more like a driver's car than it has recently. So it doesn't steer quite as sweetly as maybe any of the others. What I like about the drive modes is that compared to a McLaren, they're fairly simple. Strada for street, sport for sport, exhaust gets a bit more loud, Corsa for Corsa, and the ride gets a little bit stiffer in each one. So Corsa is is really too stiff for the road, but it does make a noise, doesn't it? The other cars feel a little easier to place. This has the most spectacular engine. Maybe the Ferrari has the most impressive engine because it's so flexible and it has so little turbo lag for a turbo, but this has the most spectacular engine. And I think if you're looking to buy a supercar, you want a spectacular engine, don't you? I think it's fine to say you want a spectacular engine. But what I really like more than anything about this car is There have been a number of Lamborghinis where you think, I'm not totally sure if this is for people who actually like driving for driving's sake. It's for people who like engines, it's for people who like spectacular noises, it's for people who like showing off with amazing sounds and visuals and everything else, but they've not actually been that rewarding to drive for people who love cars and love the interaction of steering one and driving one and all of that, you know, all of that stuff that you and I like. Well, with this, it feels like Lamborghini has not forgotten those kinds of people, and for that reason, even if other cars in the class may be slightly better, I like the rear-wheel drive Huracan a great deal.